Caleb Brooks thought he was just going on a simple blind date with an ordinary woman. But when a private jet pulled up to the curb, his world shattered in an instant. Eleanor Whitmore had been hiding a secret that would change everything. She was worth more money than he could ever dream of making in 10 lifetimes. What started as an innocent dinner would become a battle between two hearts from completely different worlds, where pride and prejudice threatened to destroy the one thing that could save them both. But when Eleanor's cold, judgmental mother delivered a crushing blow that sent Caleb running, would their love survive the ultimate test? And could a working-class man ever truly belong in a world of penthouses and private jets? Or was he destined to lose the woman who made him feel whole? The shocking truth about what happened next will leave you speechless. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're from, because this love story is about to take a turn that nobody saw coming. The alarm buzzed at 5:30 a.m., same as every weekday morning. Caleb Brooks reached over and silenced it before it could wake his neighbors in the thin-walled apartment building. He sat up slowly, letting his eyes adjust to the dim light filtering through his bedroom blinds. His morning routine never changed. Shower, coffee, toast with peanut butter. Check the weather on his phone, grab his work clothes and lunchbox. The small apartment was clean and organized, everything in its place. Not much to show for 32 years, but it was his. Caleb worked for the city's transit authority, keeping the subway trains running. When something broke down, people called him. He took pride in fixing what others couldn't. His hands were steady, his mind sharp, and he never left a job half done. At 6:45, his phone rang. Uncle Frank's name appeared on the screen. "Morning, nephew." "Hey, Frank." Caleb tucked the phone between his ear and shoulder while tying his work boots. "You busy tonight?" "Same as always. Why?" Frank chuckled. "Woman at my doctor's office has been asking about you. Says she's got a friend who might be your type." Caleb stopped tying his laces. "Frank, now hear me out. This woman, Sandra, she's been cutting my hair for 20 years. She knows good people. Says her friend's niece is sweet, single, about your age. I don't need you setting me up. When's the last time you went on a date?" Caleb couldn't remember. Work kept him busy. Weekends, he visited Frank or worked on his car. Dating felt like too much effort for too little reward. "Her name's Eleanor," Frank continued. "Goes by Ellie. Sandra says she's quiet, polite, works in some kind of business." "What kind of business?" "Does it matter? You're not marrying her tomorrow. It's just dinner." Caleb finished tying his boots and stood up. Through his window, he could see people hurrying to catch the morning bus. Regular folks heading to regular jobs. "I don't know, Frank. One dinner. If it goes bad, you blame me. If it goes good, you thank me." Frank had raised Caleb after his parents died in a car accident when he was 16. The old man had worked double shifts at the electric company to keep food on the table. He'd earned the right to offer advice, even unwanted advice. "Where?" "That little place on Morrison Street, Tony's Bistro. 7 o'clock tonight." Caleb sighed. "Fine. One dinner." "That's my boy. And Caleb? Wear something nice." The line went dead. Caleb stared at his phone, already regretting his decision. Across town, Eleanor Whitmore stood in her walk-in closet, holding 2 dresses. One was a simple black number from a department store. The other was designer silk that cost more than most people made in a month. She chose the black dress. Her penthouse apartment overlooked the city's financial district. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed a view that magazine photographers called breathtaking. To Ellie, it was just home. Expensive, isolated home. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lila Chen, her closest friend. "Still going through with this blind date thing?" Ellie typed back, "Yes, and stop calling it a thing. You could have your pick of any man in the city. Why settle for some random guy Sandra knows?" Ellie set down her phone without responding. She'd had her pick before. Men who wanted her trust fund more than her heart. men who saw dollar signs when they looked at her. The bathroom mirror reflected a woman who looked younger than her 29 years. Brown hair fell in soft waves past her shoulders. Her makeup was light, natural. She wanted to look approachable, not intimidating. Her phone rang. Lila's face appeared on the screen. "Don't ignore my texts," Lila said without saying hello. "I'm not settling. I'm trying something different." "Different how? By pretending you're not wealthy?" Ellie walked to her living room, her heels clicking on the marble floor. "I'm not pretending anything. I'm just not leading with it." "Ellie, you live in a penthouse. You fly private jets. Your family owns half the real estate in this city. He doesn't need to know that on the first date. What if he finds out later? Then what?" Ellie had wondered the same thing, but she was tired of men treating her like a prize to be won instead of a person to be known. "Then I'll deal with it later." "This is crazy. You could get hurt." "I'm already hurt," Ellie said quietly. "I'm lonely, Lila. Really lonely. And I want to know what it feels like to have someone like me for who I am, not what I have." The line went quiet for a moment. "Okay," Lila said finally. "But if this guy turns out to be a creep, I'm saying I told you so. Deal." After hanging up, Ellie sat on her white leather sofa and stared out at the city below. Millions of people lived down there. Working people. People with real problems and real dreams. She envied them sometimes. At 6:30, she took the elevator to the parking garage. Her driver, Marcus, was waiting by the car. "Evening, Miss Whitmore. Where to tonight?" "Actually, Marcus, I'm driving myself." He looked surprised. "Are you sure? It's Friday night traffic." "I'm sure." She got into her modest Honda Civic, the one car she owned that didn't scream money. As she drove through downtown, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Nervous excitement. Tony's Bistro sat on a quiet corner, squeezed between a bookstore and a flower shop. Red checkered tablecloths and the smell of garlic bread gave it a homey feel. Caleb arrived 15 minutes early and asked for a table by the window. He'd changed into khakis and a button-down shirt. His best shoes, polished that morning. He felt overdressed and underdressed at the same time. The waiter brought him water and a menu. Caleb ordered a coffee and waited. At exactly 7 o'clock, a woman walked through the front door. She looked around, spotted him, and smiled. Ellie. She was prettier than he'd expected. Not magazine pretty, but real pretty. The kind of face that got more beautiful the longer you looked at it. "Caleb?" she asked, approaching his table. He stood up quickly, almost knocking over his coffee. "That's me. You must be Eleanor." "Ellie, please." She offered her hand. Her grip was firm but gentle, her fingers soft. She smelled like vanilla and something else he couldn't name. "Thank you for agreeing to this," she said as they sat down. "I know blind dates can be awkward. Frank said you're friends with Sandra. Sandra cuts my aunt's hair. Small world, right?" The waiter appeared and took their drink orders. Ellie asked for wine. Caleb stuck with coffee. "So," Caleb said, searching for conversation, "Frank mentioned you work in business?" "Something like that." Ellie's smile was careful. "What about you?" "I fix trains. For the city. When the subway breaks down, they call me." "That sounds important." "It is. People depend on those trains to get to work, get home to their families. When they're broken, everyone's day gets worse." Ellie nodded. "I never thought about it that way. You must be good with your hands." Caleb looked down at his hands. They were clean but calloused. Working hands. "I guess so. Been fixing things since I was a kid." "Who taught you?" "My Uncle Frank, mostly. He raised me after." Caleb paused. He didn't usually share personal details with strangers, but something about Ellie made him want to talk. "After what?" "My parents died when I was 16. Car accident. Frank took me in." Her expression softened. I'm sorry. That must have been hard. Frank's a good man. Taught me to work with my hands, be responsible. Could have done worse. They ordered food. Ellie chose the chicken parmesan. Caleb got the meatball sandwich. Simple, familiar choices. What about your family? Caleb asked. It's just my mother and me. My father died 5 years ago. I'm sorry. Thank you. We weren't close, but still. Something in her voice suggested there was more to that story, but Caleb didn't push. Do you like to read? She asked, changing the subject. Not much time for it. You? I love books, fiction, mostly. Stories about people finding their way. Finding their way to what? To who they're supposed to be, to love, to forgiveness. She paused. Sorry, that probably sounds silly. No, it doesn't. Sounds nice, actually. Their food arrived. They ate slowly, talking between bites. Ellie asked about his work, his neighborhood, his favorite things to do on weekends. Her questions felt genuine, not polite small talk. Caleb found himself relaxing. Ellie laughed at his stories about fixing broken subway cars. She had a warm laugh, the kind that made you want to hear it again. What's the weirdest thing you've ever found in a subway car? She asked. 3 chickens, live ones, just sitting there like they were waiting for their stop. She laughed so hard she nearly choked on her wine. What did you do? Called animal control, but first I had to catch them. Ever try to catch a chicken in a moving train car? Can't say I have. Don't recommend it. They were halfway through dessert when Ellie's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her face changed. I'm sorry, she said. I have to go. Is everything okay? Yes, it's just work. I'm sorry, this has been wonderful, but I really have to leave. Caleb felt disappointment settle in his stomach. The evening had been going so well. Of course, no problem. She insisted on paying half the check, despite his protests. They walked outside together into the cool evening air. I had a really nice time, Ellie said. Me too. They stood on the sidewalk, neither wanting to be the first to leave. Maybe we could do this again, she asked. I'd like that. She smiled and started to say something else, but a car pulled up to the curb. Not just any car. A black town car with tinted windows. The driver got out and opened the back door. Miss Whitmore, he said formally. Caleb felt the world tilt sideways. Miss Whitmore. The driver was wearing a suit. The car was expensive. Very expensive. Ellie's face flushed red. Thank you, Marcus. She turned to Caleb, but he was staring at the car. At the driver. At the life he was just beginning to understand. Caleb, I can explain. But he couldn't speak. His mouth had gone dry. The woman he'd been talking to for 2 hours, the woman who'd seemed so normal, so real, was climbing into a car that cost more than he made in 5 years. As the town car pulled away, Caleb stood alone on the sidewalk, replaying every word of their conversation, looking for clues he'd missed, wondering who Ellie Whitmore really was, and why she'd bothered to waste an evening with someone like him. Caleb sat in his apartment that night, staring at his phone. Ellie's number was saved in his contacts now. She'd given it to him before the car arrived, before everything changed. He kept replaying the moment when the driver called her Miss Whitmore, the formal way he'd opened the door. The expensive car that probably cost more than Caleb's entire apartment building. His phone buzzed, a text from Ellie. I know tonight ended strangely. I'd like to explain if you'll let me. Are you free tomorrow afternoon? Caleb stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Where? Morrison Park? By the pond? 2 p.m.? Okay. He set his phone down and went to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. Questions kept spinning in his mind. Who was she really? Why had she seemed interested in him? And why did he still want to see her again, even knowing she came from a world he didn't understand? The next afternoon, Caleb arrived at Morrison Park early. He found a bench near the pond and watched ducks paddle across the water. Families spread blankets on the grass. Kids ran around with ice cream. Normal people doing normal things. Ellie appeared at 2 o'clock exactly. She wore jeans and a simple sweater. No driver this time, no expensive car. She'd walked from wherever she'd parked. "Thank you for coming," she said, sitting beside him on the bench. "You said you wanted to explain." Ellie was quiet for a moment, watching the ducks. "My full name is Eleanor Catherine Whitmore. My family owns Whitmore Properties." Caleb had heard of Whitmore Properties. They owned office buildings, shopping centers, apartment complexes all over the city. Big money. Serious money. "I didn't lie to you last night," she continued. "I just didn't tell you everything." "Why not?" "Because of this." She gestured at the space between them. This awkwardness. This feeling like we're from different planets now. Caleb couldn't argue with that. Everything felt different in the light of day. "I wanted one evening where someone got to know me first," she said, "before they knew about the money, before they started acting different. How do people usually act different?" Ellie's laugh was bitter. "Some men think I'm a prize to be won. Others think I'm too much trouble. Most assume I'm spoiled and empty-headed." "Are you? Spoiled?" She considered the question seriously. "Probably, but not empty-headed, and not looking for someone to take care of me financially." A little girl chased a ball past their bench, laughing. Her mother followed close behind, smiling. "What are you looking for?" Caleb asked. "Someone who sees me. Not my bank account, not my family name. Just me." "And you think I'm that person?" "I don't know yet. But last night felt real. When you told me about your parents, about Frank raising you, about catching chickens on subway cars. You weren't trying to impress me. You were just being yourself." Caleb watched a duck dive underwater and come back up with something in its beak. "I felt like an idiot when that car showed up," he said. "I know, I'm sorry. Marcus wasn't supposed to pick me up. He must have been worried when I drove myself." "You have a driver?" "Yes. And probably other things I can't imagine." Ellie nodded. "Yes." They sat in silence for several minutes. Kids played on the nearby playground. An elderly man fed breadcrumbs to the ducks despite a sign asking people not to. "So what happens now?" Caleb asked. "I don't know. What do you want to happen?" He looked at her. Really looked. Her hair moved in the breeze. She wore no makeup today, and her face looked younger, more vulnerable. She was still beautiful. Still the woman who'd laughed at his stories about subway chickens. "I want to try again," he heard himself saying. "But different this time." "Different how?" "No more surprises. If we're going to do this, I need to know what I'm getting into." "Okay. And no drivers, no expensive cars. If we're together, we're just Caleb and Ellie, not Caleb and Miss Whitmore." "I can live with that." They shook hands on it, like they were making a business deal. But when their fingers touched, Caleb felt the same spark he'd felt the night before. "So," Ellie said, "want to walk around the park?" They spent the next 2 hours walking the park's winding paths. Ellie asked more questions about his work. He told her about the different train lines, the challenges of working underground, the satisfaction of solving complex mechanical problems. "You really love what you do," she observed. "Is that strange?" "Not strange. Lucky. A lot of people hate their jobs." "What about you? What do you actually do at Whitmore Properties?" "I'm supposed to be learning the business, sitting in meetings, reviewing contracts, preparing to take over someday." She kicked at a pebble on the path. "But mostly I feel like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not." "Who do you want to be?" "I used to want to be a teacher, elementary school. I loved working with kids during college." "Why didn't you?" "Family expectations. Dad said teaching was a waste of my education. Mom said it wasn't practical for someone in our position. What do you say? Ellie was quiet for a long time. I say I took the easy path, and now I don't know how to find my way back. They stopped at a bench overlooking the pond. The sun was getting lower, painting the water golden. Can I ask you something? Ellie said. Sure. Are you angry? About the money? Caleb thought about it. Not angry. Confused, maybe. Intimidated. Don't be intimidated. Money doesn't change who I am inside. Doesn't it, though? What do you mean? You've never had to worry about paying rent. Never had to choose between fixing your car and buying groceries. Never had to work overtime just to make ends meet. That stuff shapes a person. Ellie was quiet, absorbing his words. You're right, she said finally. I can't pretend to understand what that's like, but I can try to understand. If you'll help me. Help you how? Show me your world. Let me see how you live. And I'll show you mine if you want. Your world probably wouldn't welcome someone like me. Some parts won't, but the parts that matter will. They exchanged phone numbers again, officially this time. As they prepared to leave, Ellie pulled out her car keys. Honda Civic, she said, pointing to a modest sedan in the parking lot. You really do drive yourself. Sometimes, when I want to feel normal. Is that what this is? You wanting to feel normal? Ellie turned to face him fully. No. This is me wanting to feel happy. There's a difference. That evening, Ellie called her friend Lila. How did it go? Lila asked without waiting for hello. He didn't run away screaming. That's progress. Did you tell him about the money? Yes, he was. Thoughtful about it. Thoughtful how? Ellie curled up on her couch, looking out at the city lights. He didn't get angry or weird. He just asked honest questions about how money shapes people, about what happens next. And what does happen next? We're going to try to get to know each other. Really get to know each other. Ellie, be careful. This could get complicated. Everything worthwhile is complicated. After hanging up, Ellie sat in her expensive apartment and thought about Caleb's calloused hands. The way he'd talked about fixing broken things. The pride in his voice when he described helping people get home to their families. She'd dated men with more money, more education, more social connections. But she'd never dated someone who made her feel like she could be better than she was. 3 days later, Caleb got a text. Want to cook dinner tonight? My place or yours? He stared at the message. Your place, he thought. Definitely your place. He wanted to see how she really lived. Yours, he typed back. The address she sent was in the financial district. The building was tall, modern, intimidating. A doorman in a uniform opened the door for him. I'm here to see Eleanor Whitmore, Caleb said. Of course, sir. Penthouse level. Elevator to your right. Penthouse. Of course. The elevator was silent and fast. When the doors opened, Ellie was waiting for him in a hallway with marble floors and crystal light fixtures. Hi, she said simply. Hi. She led him into her apartment, and Caleb tried not to stare. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the entire city spread out below. The furniture looked like it belonged in a magazine. Everything was clean, expensive, perfect. This is where you live, he said. This is where I live. It's... wow. Too much? He walked to the windows and looked down at the streets far below. Tiny cars moved like toys. People looked like ants. It's beautiful, he said honestly. But I can see why you might feel lonely up here. Something in her face relaxed. Thank you. For what? For not pretending it's not overwhelming. For understanding why I might want to come down to earth sometimes. They cooked together in her enormous kitchen. Ellie had bought groceries herself. she told him proudly. Simple ingredients: pasta, tomatoes, garlic, herbs, nothing fancy. I'm not a great cook, she admitted as she struggled to open a jar of sauce. Here. Caleb took the jar and opened it easily. You just need to grip it right. Their hands touched as he passed the jar back. The same spark from the park. They ate at her dining room table, which was big enough for 12 people, but felt cozy with just the two of them. Ellie had lit candles and turned down the lights so the city sparkled outside the windows. This is nice, Caleb said. Better than Tony's Bistro? Different than Tony's. Not better or worse. Just different. After dinner, they sat on her couch and talked. Really talked. About growing up. About dreams they'd given up. About what scared them most. I'm afraid of being alone, Ellie admitted. But I'm more afraid of being with someone who doesn't really see me. I'm afraid of not being enough, Caleb said. Of disappointing people who matter to me. Like Frank. He paused. Like you. You don't disappoint me, Caleb. Yet. Ever. They were sitting closer now, turned toward each other on the couch. Ellie's hand rested on the cushion between them. Caleb covered it with his own. Can I ask you something? He said. Anything. When you decided to go on that blind date, what were you hoping for? Ellie thought carefully before answering. I was hoping to feel like myself again. Like a woman, not an heiress. Like someone worth knowing for reasons that had nothing to do with money. And now? Now I'm hoping for more time. More conversations like this one. More chances to figure out if what I'm feeling is real. What are you feeling? She squeezed his hand. Happy. Nervous. Hopeful. Like maybe I found something I didn't even know I was looking for. Caleb leaned closer. Can I kiss you? I was wondering when you'd ask. The kiss was soft, tentative at first. Then deeper, as they both realized they wanted this. Had been wanting this since the park, maybe since Tony's Bistro. When they broke apart, Ellie rested her forehead against his. This is going to be complicated, she whispered. Yeah, he agreed. But maybe complicated isn't so bad. They held each other on the couch as the city lights twinkled below, both wondering if they were brave enough for whatever came next. 2 weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and careful discoveries. Caleb and Ellie saw each other almost every day, alternating between his modest apartment and her penthouse world. They were learning each other's rhythms, building something that felt both fragile and precious. On a Thursday evening, Ellie sat in Caleb's living room while he fixed her laptop. She watched his hands move with practiced skill. The same concentration he brought to subway repairs applied to her computer problems. There, he said, closing the laptop. Should run better now. My hero. She kissed his cheek. What would I do without you? Buy a new laptop every time something goes wrong? She laughed. Probably. This was their routine now. Small domestic moments that felt revolutionary to both of them. Ellie had never dated someone who could fix things with his hands. Caleb had never dated someone who brought fresh flowers to his apartment just because she liked how they looked on his kitchen table. I want you to meet someone, Ellie said as they shared Chinese takeout on his couch. Who? My best friend Lila. She's been dying to meet you. Caleb set down his chopsticks. Is she going to hate me? Why would she hate you? Because I'm not what she expected for you. Ellie turned to face him fully. Lila cares about me being happy. That's all. And your mother? Ellie's face tightened. That's different. They hadn't talked much about Marianne Whitmore. Ellie mentioned her occasionally, always with careful words. Caleb got the impression that mother and daughter had a complicated relationship. Maybe I should meet your friend first, he said. Saturday afternoon? There's a bookstore downtown she loves. Okay. Saturday came with spring rain. Caleb met Ellie outside Chapter and Verse, a cozy bookstore tucked between a coffee shop and an art gallery. She was waiting under the awning, holding an umbrella. "She's already inside," Ellie said, kissing him hello. "Fair warning, she's protective." "Good. You should have people who protect you." They found Lila in the fiction section, a petite woman with sharp eyes and an expensive handbag. She looked up from a novel and smiled warmly. "You must be Caleb." "You must be Lila." They shook hands. Her grip was firm, assessing. "Ellie says you fix trains. Among other things." "That's honest work." Something in her tone suggested this was a test. Caleb wondered if he was passing or failing. They browsed the store together, Lila asking casual questions about his job, his background, his interests. Nothing too personal, but Caleb could feel her measuring him against some invisible standard. "I'm getting coffee," Ellie announced. "You two keep browsing." She disappeared toward the cafe section, leaving Caleb alone with Lila. The woman wasted no time. "She's been hurt before," Lila said quietly, still looking at books. "By who?" "Men who saw dollar signs instead of a person. Men who thought they could handle her world, but couldn't handle her heart." Caleb pulled a book from the shelf and pretended to read the back cover. "I'm not after her money." "I know. That's obvious. But money isn't the only way to hurt someone." "What do you mean?" Lila turned to face him. "Ellie spent her whole life being told she's too much, too emotional, too impractical, too soft for the business world. If you can't handle all of who she is, walk away now, before she gets in deeper." "Who says I can't handle it? Can you? Can you handle her mother's disapproval? Her friends who'll think you're not good enough? The whispers and stares when you're out together?" Caleb had been wondering about those things himself, but hearing them laid out so bluntly made something defensive rise in his chest. "I care about her. That's what matters." Caring isn't always enough. Ellie returned with 3 cups of coffee, breaking the tension. "What are you two talking about?" "Books," Lila said smoothly. "Caleb was telling me about his favorite authors." They spent another hour in the store. As they prepared to leave, Lila pulled Ellie aside while Caleb paid for a mystery novel. "What do you think?" Ellie asked quietly. "I think he's genuine. I think he cares about you, and I think he has no idea what he's getting into." "Should I be worried?" Lila looked over at Caleb, who was chatting with the cashier about subway maintenance. "Just be careful. Money complicates everything, even when people try to pretend it doesn't." That evening, Ellie and Caleb walked along the riverfront. The rain had stopped, leaving the air clean and fresh. City lights reflected off the wet pavement. "Lila likes you," Ellie said. "How can you tell?" "She didn't ask you to leave. That's her version of a warm endorsement." They found a bench overlooking the river. A few joggers passed by, but mostly they had the path to themselves. "Can I ask you something?" Caleb said. "Always." "Your mother. When do I get to meet her?" Ellie was quiet for a long time. "Do you want to meet her?" "I want to meet the people who matter to you." "She's going to judge you. She's going to find you lacking. She's going to make suggestions about how you could improve yourself to be more suitable. And it's going to hurt, both of us." Caleb took her hand. "I can handle some judgment." "Can you? Really?" "Try me," Ellie sighed. "Okay, Sunday dinner. But I'm warning you now, it's going to be awful." Sunday evening found them in front of an imposing mansion in the city's most exclusive neighborhood. Caleb had worn his best suit, the one he'd bought for job interviews. It felt cheap next to the grandeur of the Whitmore family home. "Remember," Ellie said as they walked to the front door, "she's going to try to intimidate you. Don't let her." "How do I not let her?" "Be yourself. Answer her questions honestly. Don't try to impress her. A housekeeper answered the door and led them through rooms filled with antique furniture and oil paintings. Everything looked expensive and untouchable. Marianne Whitmore waited in a formal dining room, seated at the head of a table set for 3. She was an elegant woman in her late 50s, with silver hair and pearls. Her smile was polite but didn't reach her eyes. "Mother, this is Caleb Brooks. Caleb, my mother. Marianne Whitmore." "Mrs. Whitmore." Caleb offered his hand. She shook it briefly. "Mr. Brooks, Eleanor has told me very little about you. I'm sure she's told you the important things." They sat down to dinner served on china that probably cost more than Caleb's car. The conversation started politely enough. Marianne asked about his work, his background, his family. "And your uncle raised you, I understand." "Yes, ma'am. After my parents died." "That must have been difficult. What kind of work does he do?" "He's retired now. Was an electrician for 40 years." "I see." Her tone suggested she saw quite clearly and didn't particularly like what she saw. The questions continued through dinner. Where had he gone to school? What were his career ambitions? Did he have any investments? Any property? Caleb answered honestly, watching Ellie grow more uncomfortable with each exchange. "Mother," Ellie said finally, "maybe we could talk about something else." "I'm just getting acquainted with your friend, dear." After dinner, Marianne suggested they move to the living room for coffee. Caleb excused himself to use the restroom, and when he returned, he could hear voices from down the hall. "He seems nice enough," Marianne was saying. "But Eleanor, really, what future could you possibly have with someone so limited?" "Limited how?" "Financially, socially, intellectually. He fixes trains, dear." "There's nothing wrong with fixing trains. Of course not. But is that the kind of life you want? The kind of man you want to father your children?" Caleb stopped walking. He should announce himself, or go back to the bathroom, or do something other than eavesdrop. But he couldn't move. "I want to be happy, Mother." Happiness is overrated. Security, stability, shared values, those matter more. He makes me happy. For now. But what happens when the novelty wears off? When you realize you have nothing in common? When you want to travel or entertain or live the life you were raised for and he can't keep up? You don't know him. I know enough. He's a nice man, I'm sure. But he's not suitable for you, and deep down, you know it. Caleb had heard enough. He walked loudly down the hall, making sure his footsteps announced his return. "Sorry," he said, entering the living room. "Got a little lost." Both women looked up. Ellie's face was flushed. Marianne's expression was carefully neutral. They left shortly after, making polite excuses. In the car, Ellie drove in silence until they were several blocks away. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "For what?" "For her. For what she said. For putting you through that. She's protecting you the only way she knows how. By insulting you?" Caleb stared out the window at the expensive houses they were passing, big homes with perfect lawns and security systems. "Maybe she's right," he said quietly. Ellie pulled over and stopped the car. "What did you say?" "Maybe she's right. Maybe we don't have anything in common. Maybe I can't keep up with your life." "Caleb, no. Don't let her get in your head." "Am I in your head? Really? Or am I just a nice break from your real life?" "You are my real life. This thing we're building. It's the most real thing I've ever had." But doubt had crept in. The way doubt always did when you were reminded how different your worlds were. Caleb looked at Ellie, beautiful, kind, impossibly out of his league, and wondered if he was fooling himself. "Take me home," he said. "Caleb? Please. I need to think." The drive to his apartment was silent. When she dropped him off, Ellie touched his arm. "Don't let her win," she said. "Please. I'll call you tomorrow." But as he watched her drive away, Caleb wasn't sure he would. Some voices once heard were hard to silence, and Marianne Whitmore's voice was telling him things he'd already feared were true. Caleb didn't call the next day, or the day after that. He went to work, fixed broken subway cars, and tried not to think about Ellie sitting in her penthouse wondering why he'd gone silent. But every time his phone buzzed with a text from her, he felt his resolve weaken. "Are you okay? Can we talk? I miss you." On Wednesday, his coworker Thomas found him sitting alone in the break room, staring at his untouched sandwich. "You look terrible," Thomas said, sitting down across from him. "Thanks. Woman trouble?" Caleb had told Thomas a little about Ellie. Not about the money. He wasn't ready for those questions yet, just that he was seeing someone. "Her mother doesn't think I'm good enough." Thomas snorted. "Mothers never think anybody's good enough for their daughters. What's the real problem?" "Maybe she's right." "About what?" Caleb looked around the break room. Fluorescent lights, vending machines, workers in coveralls eating lunch from brown bags. His world. "We're from different places, Tom. Different everything." "So? My wife's from Puerto Rico. I'm from Ohio. We made it work." "This is bigger than geography." "How much bigger?" Caleb finally told him. About the penthouse, the driver, the family money. Thomas listened without interrupting, occasionally raising his eyebrows. "Damn," Thomas said when Caleb finished. Rich. "Yeah. And she likes you anyway?" "I thought she did." Thomas leaned back in his plastic chair. "Let me ask you something. When you're with her, how do you feel?" "Happy, like myself, but better." "And how does she act around you?" "Real, not like someone trying to impress me, just real." "Then what's the problem?" "The problem is her mother's right. I can't give her the life she's used to. I can't fit into her world." "Who says you have to fit into her world? Maybe she wants to fit into yours." Caleb shook his head. "You don't understand. This isn't just about money. It's about everything. The way I talk, the way I dress, the places I've never been, the things I don't know. I went to community college. She probably went to some fancy private school. So learn. Ask questions. Let her teach you things." "And what do I teach her? How to fix a broken train?" Thomas was quiet for a moment. "You know what your problem is, Caleb. You're deciding for her. You're assuming she's going to get tired of you and leave, so you're leaving first. I'm being realistic. You're being a coward." The words stung because they felt true. "My Uncle Frank raised me to know my place," Caleb said. "Work hard, be honest. Don't reach for things that aren't meant for you." "And what if this is meant for you? What if you're throwing away something real because you're scared?" That evening, Caleb drove to Frank's house. The old man lived in a small ranch home he'd bought 30 years ago. The neighborhood wasn't fancy, but it was safe and clean. Working-class people who took pride in what they had. Frank was in his garage, tinkering with a lawnmower engine. He looked up when Caleb walked in. "Haven't seen you in a while." "Been busy. With that girl Sandra set you up with." Caleb sat down on a milk crate and told Frank everything. About Ellie, about the money, about dinner with her mother. Frank worked while he listened, occasionally grunting or asking a question. "So now you're running away," Frank said when Caleb finished. "I'm being practical." Frank set down his wrench and looked at his nephew. "You know what your problem is. Thomas already told me I'm a coward. Thomas is right, but that's not your main problem." "What is?" "You think being working class means being less than. You think because I raised you to work with your hands and be grateful for what you have, that means you should never want more." "Isn't that what you taught me?" "I taught you to be proud of honest work, I taught you not to be ashamed of where you come from. But I never taught you to think you weren't good enough for happiness. Frank wiped his hands on a rag and sat down on another crate. Your parents died too young, he said. I did my best to raise you right, but maybe I taught you to play it too safe. Maybe I made you think staying small was the same as staying humble. Frank, this girl makes you happy. Yeah. She treat you right? Better than right. Then what's the problem? You think because she has money she's better than you? No, but nothing. Money doesn't make someone better. It just makes them richer. And if she's choosing you over all the rich boys she could have, maybe you should ask yourself why. Caleb had wondered about that. In her world, Ellie could date anyone. Businessmen, lawyers, doctors, men who understood her life. Maybe she's slumming it, he said. Maybe I'm just something different for a while. Frank shook his head. That girl came to dinner with her mama knowing it would be ugly. You think she'd put herself through that for a fling? I don't know. I do. She's serious about you, boy. Question is, are you serious about her? Across town, Ellie sat in her penthouse, staring at her phone. 4 days since Caleb had pulled away. 4 days of silence except for his brief texts, saying he needed time to think. Lila had come over with wine and sympathy, but even her best friend's presence couldn't fill the hollow feeling in Ellie's chest. He'll come around, Lila said from the kitchen, where she was making tea. Will he? Maybe he realized my mother was right. Your mother doesn't know him. She knows enough. She knows we don't match on paper. Lila returned with 2 cups and sat beside Ellie on the couch. Since when do you care about matching on paper? Since I watched him shut down at dinner. Since I saw him realize what he'd be getting into if he stayed with me. Or since you got scared that he might actually be worth fighting for. Ellie looked at her friend. What do you mean? You've never brought a man home to meet your mother. Never. Why did you put Caleb through that? Because he asked to meet her. Because you wanted to see if he'd run. Because if he ran, it would prove you were right about men only wanting you for your money, or being too intimidated by your life to stick around. The words hit uncomfortably close to home. That's not true. Isn't it? You picked the one test you knew he'd probably fail. Your mother at her most judgmental, in her most intimidating setting. Ellie set down her tea. I wanted him to see what he was getting into. You wanted an excuse to protect yourself. Because this is the first time you've actually fallen for someone. I haven't fallen for... Ellie. You're in love with him. The words hung in the air between them. Ellie felt something tight in her chest, like she couldn't breathe properly. It doesn't matter if I am. He's pulling away. Then fight for him. How? Same way you'd want him to fight for you. Show up. Be honest. Don't let pride win. The next morning, Ellie made a decision. Instead of waiting for Caleb to call, she drove to the Transit Authority building where he worked. She'd never been there before, had only a vague idea of what he did all day. The security guard at the front desk looked surprised to see a woman in expensive clothes asking for Caleb Brooks. He's down in the maintenance bay, the guard said, but I don't think visitors are allowed. Please, it's important. Something in her voice made him reconsider. Let me call down. 5 minutes later, Caleb appeared in the lobby, wearing work clothes stained with grease. His face was surprised, then guarded. Ellie, what are you doing here? We need to talk. I'm at work. Then let's talk here. He looked around the lobby, aware of curious eyes watching them. 5 minutes, he said. They found a quiet corner near some vending machines. Caleb crossed his arms, waiting. Why are you pulling away? Ellie asked. I'm not pulling away. I'm thinking. About what? About whether this makes sense. Whether we're just fooling ourselves. Are we? Caleb looked at her, beautiful even in the harsh fluorescent light, completely out of place in this working-class building. Your mother thinks so. My mother thinks a lot of things, most of them wrong. Is she wrong about this? Ellie stepped closer. Do you remember our first date? At Tony's. Before you knew about the money? Yeah. How did I make you feel? Happy, comfortable, like I could be myself. And how do I make you feel now? Confused, like I'm not enough. That's not because of me. That's because you're letting other people's voices get louder than your own. A transit worker walked by, nodding at Caleb. Morning, boss. Morning, Terry. After the man passed, Ellie said, They respect you here. It's just work. No, it's not. You're good at what you do. You take pride in it. You help people get home safely every day. That matters. Not to your world. My world is broken, Caleb. It's full of people who measure worth by bank accounts and social connections. It's cold and lonely and fake most of the time. She reached for his hands, not caring that they were dirty. But when I'm with you, I remember who I really am. Not the heiress or the Whitmore name. Just Ellie. A woman who laughs at your stories and feels safe in your arms and thinks you're the most genuine man she's ever met. Ellie. I know my mother scared you. I know this seems impossible. But don't you think what we have is worth fighting for? Caleb looked down at their joined hands, her soft fingers against his calloused palms. What if we try and it doesn't work? What if the differences are too big? Then we'll figure it out together. But what if we don't try and spend the rest of our lives wondering what might have been? Around them, the transit building hummed with activity. Radios crackled with train updates. Workers headed to their shifts, normal life continuing. I love you, Ellie said quietly. The words hit him like a physical blow. He looked up into her eyes, searching for doubt, for hesitation. He found none. I love you too, he said. That's what scares me. Don't let fear win, please. Caleb's supervisor appeared around the corner, stopping when he saw them. Brooks, you good? Yeah, Jim. Just give me 2 more minutes. The supervisor nodded and walked away. Caleb turned back to Ellie. Okay, he said. Okay. Okay, let's try, but we do this right. No more hiding parts of ourselves. No more letting other people decide what we're worth. Ellie's smile was like sunrise. Deal. She kissed him there in the lobby of the Transit Authority building, in front of vending machines and under fluorescent lights. It wasn't romantic by any traditional measure, but it felt like the most honest moment of Ellie's life. 6 months later, they were back at Tony's Bistro, the same table by the window where they'd first met. No private car waited outside this time. Caleb had driven them in his pickup truck. Think Sandra knew what she was doing when she set us up? Ellie asked, twirling pasta around her fork. Sandra's craftier than she looks. They'd found their rhythm in the months since that day at the transit building. Caleb had met more of Ellie's world, some parts welcoming, others less so. But he'd learned to navigate it without losing himself. Ellie had spent time in his world too. She'd had dinner with Frank, who'd immediately adopted her as honorary family. She'd visited the transit yards, watching Caleb work with obvious admiration. More importantly, they'd created their own world. A space where her money mattered less than their shared laughter, where his background was an asset, not a liability. I have something to tell you, Ellie said as they finished dessert. Good something or bad something? Good. I hope. She set down her fork. I applied to go back to school, to get my teaching certificate. Caleb's face lit up. Ellie, that's amazing. I'll still help with the family business, but part-time. I want to do something that matters. Teaching matters. You helped me see that. You helped me remember who I wanted to be. They walked out into the evening air, hand in hand. The city buzzed around them, full of people heading home from work, from dates, from the 1,000 small moments that make up a life. "So what happens now?" Caleb asked. "Now we keep building, day by day, choice by choice." "Think we can make it work? Really work?" Ellie stopped walking and turned to face him. "I think love isn't about matching on paper. It's about choosing each other every day, even when it's complicated, especially when it's complicated." That sounds like something Frank would say. Frank's a wise man. They stood on the sidewalk where their story had begun, 6 months and a lifetime ago. Around them, the city continued its eternal rhythm. Above them, stars appeared one by one in the darkening sky. "I love you, Caleb Brooks." "I love you too, Eleanor Whitmore." "Think our kids will have your practical hands or my impractical dreams?" "Both, I hope." Ellie laughed, the sound carrying on the evening breeze. It was the same laugh that had caught Caleb's attention that first night, but deeper now, richer, full of promise. They drove home together in his pickup truck, past her penthouse and his apartment building, toward the future they were building one honest conversation at a time. It wouldn't always be easy. Her world would always have voices like her mother's, questioning whether they belonged together. His world would sometimes wonder what she saw in him, but they'd learned something valuable in their months together. Love isn't about being the same. It's about being real. About seeing each other clearly and choosing to stay anyway. The truck radio played soft music as they navigated the city streets. Ellie's hand rested on Caleb's knee. He could feel the warmth of her palm through his jeans, steady and sure. At the next red light, he looked over at her. She was watching the city pass by, a small smile on her lips. In that moment, with her hair catching the streetlights and her expensive ring catching the dashboard glow, she looked exactly like what she was. A woman who'd found her way home. Not to a place, but to a person. To a love that had started with a blind date and grown into something neither of them had dared to hope for. The light turned green. Caleb pressed the accelerator, and they moved forward together into whatever came next. 2 hearts that had learned to beat in rhythm. 2 lives that had discovered they were stronger together than apart. Behind them, the city sparkled with a million stories of love found and lost and found again. Theirs was just one story among many, but it was theirs. Built on honesty, sustained by choice, and measured not in dollars or status, but in the quiet moments when 2 people look at each other and know they're exactly where they belong. The truck carried them toward home, toward tomorrow, toward a love that had started with fear and blossomed into courage. Outside, the world rushed by in streams of light and shadow. Inside, Caleb and Ellie rode in comfortable silence, each knowing they'd found something rare and precious. Something worth fighting for. Something worth keeping. Something real.